This is Jimbo J-Tech back with the 5th video in my new series of music production tutorial videos for Sonic Academy. In this video, we're going to look at crafting our initial groove section. That's the kind of rave section before the breakdown and then in the outro, and making some riffs and plucks that are going to fill out these empty areas in the sound space during the development of the track, and ways that we can make them sound really cool by developing them and making them swell and get really big as the track goes along. So let's dive right in. Okay, in this video, we are going to look at creating a series of evolving and swelling sort of trancey elements to sort of carry the rave section of the song. I'm going to give you a quick play of what we've created so far. In addition to our lovely breakdown music that we began the track with. So there's been a bit of arrangement development here. I've just sort of, started fleshing out, where all of this, the kick goes and the basses and stuff like that. And so, as far as filling out the arrangement goes, I generally just fill things out according to a pretty standard format and then start chipping away at it. So, it just helps sometimes, even when you've just got like the bare elements, to sort of at least spread them out to a 5 or 6 minute arrangement so that you've at least got the whole track in view there, and then you can start sort of whittling away at it later. So this section, that we've just sort of crafted, it really is, it's the drop section. It's where all of the music is going to come in and, sort of lead to a grand finale. But what about earlier in the song and towards the end of the song, because these trance songs, they're designed to be played at trance raves, at these rave parties that have been ubiquitous around the world since the 90s. And these tracks really thrive on a contrast between this sort of musical section where, it's sort of you're listening to it with your mind and it's evoking an emotional response, but then there's also the dance floor element which you sort of feel with your body. And so, there's a celebration of that contrast between simple and complex musically in these tracks a lot of the time. So we've got the sort of story, and now we're sort of taking that story and making the context of it something that people can rave to. And so in this case, what I've done here is I've taken the sub and the bass, just those two channels, and I've created a more simple pattern that's just in the root note. Let's have a listen. That's the rave. That's the essence of the ravey part of the song. That's because if you are bombarding people with a musical story the whole way through the song, it gets a bit overwhelming and it's too much. But this is something that people can latch onto. You can almost imagine hearing this from, you might be waiting in line to get into the rave and you're hearing that, that window shaking kind of bass from the outside, and you can hear this is what's coming through, right? It's that visceral sort of essence that we come back to again and again and again, and we gravitate to in this music, and it will never get old. As long as we like dancing and counting to 4 in our music, I think this kind of feel will be around. So what do we do to build on top of this? Because this is pretty bare bones right now. Now, you'll notice that, the whole way through this track, whenever I've added more complexity, I've done it by taking, something from the most simplest motifs and then, applying them to a new sound. So I've got, once again, this Arturia Pigments, which is sort of showcased a lot in this track. So I'm just copying that bass, that new tonic bass. And really all I did with that was just use that single note, the C sharp, and just sort of, making a bit of a groove that works nicely with the kick, and just by moving some notes around. You heard a little preview of what this sound is going to sound like. So this is a Pigments preset, which I found, and this is in the synth leads. And I'm not doing too much to this. Now, to me, like Anjuna records always have these sort of quirky rave sounds that sort of, you know, stick out quite a lot. And, you know, they are sort of quirky and a little bit distorted usually. So I'm going to put an overdrive on this, which is going to just sort of distort those mid-range frequencies. Notice how that instantly makes the sound more in your face and unapologetic, and it's a way to bring a sense of nastiness to the song, a good nastiness, hopefully. I'm going to add a ping pong delay here, just bouncing left and right, just a little bit, just a splash. Good old sidechain reading the kick. And a long reverb, which I'll actually put before the sidechain. So this just has like a 6% wet right now. And the reason for that, you know, the echo and the reverb is that I want to give the feeling that this sound is sort of bouncing around like this big arena that everybody's dancing in. You know, if you have these spatial effects switched off, then it's coming from the front and center of the stage. When you turn these things on, especially a bouncing ping pong delay, it means the sound is actually bouncing around the room, or, you know, and so Raum is the German word for space, which is, you know, this reverb is giving a sense of space. It's defining, you know, the parameters. Even just with this single, like how long it reverbs out for, you can define the size of the space that this sound is reverberating out in. Now, while I'm creating these sounds, I'm always keeping my ear to the ground, or keeping an eye out for the parameters that are going to automate well, because we do want things to be evolving as we go along. So that's the mix parameter of this reverb. And in this particular track, I have it sort of, you know, doing pretty predictable linear lines like that. So that the whole song, you know, while everything else is static and playing on repeat, this is evolving, and it's swelling and it's swelling and it's swelling, which is making the whole track feel bigger and bigger and bigger as it goes along. And there's a nice contrast with that dry there. So we do want to have, in a track like this, we want to have sounds automating. You know, we want parameters to be moving around a bit. We don't want things to be too static. That's what we call a static mix, and it's where we're generally trying to avoid it. So the next thing I'm going to add is a pluck to sort of respond to all of the elements that are currently in there right now. And once again, we're just going to start really small. This is an Anna preset called Big Trance Pluck. You know, once again, I'm not going too hard on any of the individual settings in this series of videos. But whenever you do pick a synth preset, you should always aim to fiddle around with all of its parameters and really just like dial it into the mix and tune it into the mix. Because everything that's in there is a suggestion. So, you know, it's always good to tweak your presets a little bit if you are using presets. So just second and fourth beat of the bar to start with. So there's this sort of question and answer going on between these two things, and it's this back and forth that just helps the whole arrangement sort of feel a bit like that, you know? It is a little bit simple though, so I'm gonna just start adding a couple of extra notes, once again, building on top of that simplicity. Doing this 4th, 16th note there. And a good old 7th note. As I'm sure you're starting to realize, we can throw them in quite a lot and get away with it. this filter cutoff here. That's how you know what parameters to automate, because you can go into the synth or the effect and you can turn that knob up and you can be like, ooh, there we go. There's something fun. So there's a macro here which has a cutoff control as well, which I'm guessing might do, you know, an extra parameter or two as well. So we're going to use that one. Might copy that kind of similar curve from the ravey sound. So that just swells and swells and gets bigger and bigger. And actually the automation leads very nicely into the breakdown. So, and even just by like starting things like small and then working your way up and then just turning them back down and then back up again, like we're seeing here with these, it's such a dramatic effect. So you can literally just turn things up to 11 and then just turn them straight back down again and start it all over again. And you can do that throughout the whole song if you want. Some people do it even over an even longer period of time. It's a way to build anticipation. Lastly, I just have like a quirky little edge bass noise. This is a sampled sound. So it's just a wave sample that I got from Splice Sounds. And I'm always layering these synthesized things up with something from the real world that I didn't synthesize myself. And that's just to create, I don't know, just it just makes these sounds a bit more convincing somehow and makes them feel less like they're playing out of a synth. So, you know, you could trigger this with MIDI, but I'm just going to copy it onto the arrangement. I'm going to match the pattern of the red line above. Oops. And my grid is quite narrow at the moment, so it's not always quite on beat. And so I'm going to basically just copy that across so that it's across the whole arrangement there in tandem with this rave sound. Should be more like that. So, you know, that's the joy of Ableton, is that you can just take, you know, wave samples and throw them at the canvas. You can obviously pitch them around if you need to. You can do all kinds of things to them and mangle them. So that's basically how I've sort of, you know, filled out these groove sections. So that, you know, this is the stuff that's really going to sort of be front and center and in your face during these more simple sections, and then it's going to be replaced by the music, you know, over in this section later on. And then, you know, there'll be a nice pleasing return to this raviness by the end of the song that by this point in hopefully in musical epicness they had sort of forgotten about, and then they get thrown back into it at the end and everyone's like, yeah, like it's a more simple dance beat to return to. So that's the gist of this video. In the next video, we'll be exploring best practices for all of the drums, hats, percussion, snares, things like that for trance tracks. So stay tuned for that.